You can drop down to 512 gigs here, but it's worth noting that the savings to capacity calculation is really not pretty. Because this isn't a PCIe Gen 5 drive, we're going to place it in one of the slower slots, leaving our faster slot right under the CPU socket for a future upgrade. Like when we installed our CPU, there's a little notch in the NVMe connector that lines up with the key on the motherboard slot. Just slide it in at about a 25 to 30 degree angle, then press it down and secure your NVMe drive in place using the included little plastic clip. If you're following along at home with a different motherboard, it's worth noting that these mechanisms do vary a little bit. Some use different plastic clips, others are held in place by the heatsink cover over top, and others use these convenient tiny little screws that will immediately get lost in high pile carpet. Speaking of RAM, we spec'd our system with a 32 gig kit of Corsair Vengeance DDR5 6000 CL36. It didn't arrive in time for our shoot today, so we're using this similarly spec'd G.Skill kit in its place. If $400+ is too rich for your blood up front, a nice thing about going Intel, by the way, is their memory controller tends to play a little bit nicer with 4 sticks. So going for 16 gigs today and then upgrading the later could be a good option for you. This is also one of the areas where my previous recommendation to drop down to 84 stacks of money could pay off big. 32 gigs of DDR4 is only about $200 more. Installing RAM, regardless of what's going on, is pretty much the same across the board. You gotta follow 2 laws. The first is Sharad's law, and that is that probably the labels will face inward from the CPU socket where you are left with the ceiling. The second is if you don't want performance that's 4, install your RAM in slots 2 and 4, counting in front of the CPU socket. Neither of these are always needed. If you want to double check, you'll want to consult the motherboard's manual for the recommended use. To install it, all we've got to do, now that we know where to put it and how to orient it, is place our thumbs firmly on both sides of the stick and push down until it clicks. It takes a little bit more pressure than novice users are necessarily comfortable with. Now there's just one more piece before we install the second piece. Our CPU is going to need to improve, and we've already spent almost half of our budget, so let's not overthink this and go for the thermalite assassin X120 Refined SE. It's just $17.90, and you have no problem with it for $250. Now our CPU uses the LGA 1851 socket. It's clearly been around for long enough that you might end up with a version that has the connection and ability of that socket. Luckily for us, Intel kept the same specs between their LGA 1700 socket and newer 1851. So we can just follow the directions to mount LGA 17. Little sliders. Adjust those to the 1700 position, and they go through the back of the motherboard like so. Then we keep our team blue space for those accessories. Then we grab our Intel screws, which look remarkably similar to the AMD screws. We want to look at the manual to see what that means. But thread on the AMD screws is a little fatter than the AMD ones. Then we grab these 2 brackets and end up basically breaking your CPU. These should look in one way. Next, if our cooler doesn't have to apply, we've got a little cooked green of brown rice style color. So you can then the mounting brackets, just starting both sides before it's working down, and tapping that, and plug it into a CPU fan here on the top. While RGB headers, and you can go in the way. Now, it's time to clarify and get everything in the case. I've actually seen that you need to import those, but this starts out as they use and the first thing we're going to do once we have our accessory configuration is make it all alive. I like having that now back in the original box. That way they're far less likely to, be dropped. Next up, each hole. If you have any extras, there's a very good chance they will scratch the physical on your board, damaging or killing it. With that out of the way, it's time to remember just in the nick of time to install our I/O shield in the big rectangular opening at the back of the case. Just to line it up, and then press down on each of the four corners. Then do it again, because it probably didn't work on all of them the first time. Now you can gently put your motherboard into place at about a 30-degree angle, first lining up the rear I/O, then placing the board down against the standoffs. Make sure that you don't scrape it around. Now's a great time to inspect the rear I/O and make sure that none of the little tabs on the I/O shield end up inside the ports. That'll be a 15 to 20 minute job to fix later if you don't catch it now. With all of that good, you can secure the motherboard in place with the correct screws, and then it's time to get to work. This is one of the trickiest parts of building a PC for new builders. Pretty much any case, there we go, is going to have kind of a bundle of wires and connectors coming from wherever the front I/O is. This one right here is for your front panel audio and connects to the audio port that's usually on the bottom left corner of the motherboard. This one and this one are for your case's front USB ports. The big wide one is for your USB 3 Type A, and then this little, sometimes a ribbon cable one is for your front USB Type C. Usually these connectors are either along the right-hand edge or along the bottom edge of the motherboard. Next, it's time to plug in the front panel buttons. If you're lucky, your power button, your reset, and their corresponding LEDs will all be molded into a single connector that will have the same pinout as your motherboard. If you're a little less lucky, you'll end up with a situation like this, where the system has a power and a reset button, but doesn't appear to actually have a lead for the reset button. We just have a little power switch button, and then we have an LED switch button. Oh, it's not a reset button. It turns the lights on and off. It goes to this fan and RGB controller hub in the back of the casing. Anyway, for the power button, the polarity doesn't matter, so you just go ahead and put it on these two power pins right here. And then for that hub, we're going to go ahead and plug in one of the RGB leads, as well as a fan lead that is going to give it a PWM signal so that all of the fans plugged into the hub will run at the same speed. We'll deal with the same power connection later in the power supply. Now we're at a step that's going to be a little unusual in this case. Pun intended. Our power supply. Seasonic has sponsored this video and sent over their Focus GX V4 ATX3 2024 850 watt 80 plus volt. Words on the side? What's not to like about it? It's fully modular with a quiet 135mm fan, and it has industry-leading reliability that's backed up with a 10-year warranty. So the power supplies is about as long as the average building industry. All of that for just $109.99. LTT Labs ran the 750 watt version for a full test suite and found that it performs just like Seasonic said it does. So you can check that out at the link in the video description, as well as the link to this product. Now, before we get into our case, let's get out the appropriate cables for our build here. It's much easier to connect these to the power supply now outside the case than once we've put it in here and then come to this cable covering strap. We believe our 24 port board and 8 on CPU and let's throw in 4 CPU as well. And we need an PCIe power cable for our GPU. After that, coming back, we're going to grab the SATA cable like that one too. All of these things, if it fits my sense method of validation, and everything plugged into the power supply, we'll slip it in a little bit like so. Then facing towards the side panel. Tighten up the core screws at the top, then you need to plug in the pass-through power cable and flip the switch to the I on the power supply. Now, not that it really matters as much in this case, but some small form factor cases are really hard to get at that switch of the natural side. Our motherboard cables are out through the nearest cable management holes. We believe our GPU connector here, and our SATA cable plugs in here, as well as access to the behind this particular door, which we can secure to the screw. To wrap this step up, again, we'll use these little loops on the back of the motherboard tray to strap down all of our cables. But we're not going to do that just yet, because first, it's time for the PCIe de la Resistance of our build, our GPU. We want the 6 prime GeForce RTX 5070 die is 16K. And I hate it. To be clear, I don't hate the GPU, I just hate that for $900, this isn't even the overclocked version. Not that the 45 megahertz really matters. The cooler's the same, and we can overclock it 1% if we really want to. It's just that I remember when $900 bought you a top-of-the-line GPU, or even two of them in SLI. But maybe there's a solution we're not seeing. I mean, if creating my own headcanon made me happier about Star Wars, maybe it'll work here. This is the top-of-the-line GPU. This is the top-of-the-line GPU. I mean, jokes aside, it does perform really well, as you guys are about to see. And with it as our centerpiece, our whole build came in at $1974 US. So we're talking 4K gaming for just under 2,000 freedom bucks. We just need to pop out these two PCIe slot covers that the back indicates to make room. Then we line up our GPU with the PCIe 16X slot and give it a gentle push into place. There may be an audible click, but there might not be. Don't force anything. You can always just check this clip at the back of the slot to see if it's engaged. Then do a quick double check by the PCI bracket to ensure that the fingers are sliding in between the motherboard and the back of the case. If everything looks good, it's time to securely plug in our 12-volt 5/16 steady power connector. Make sure that all the latch engages, and then you can tidy up those excess cables. Now let's just give this one wired networking required because we do not change over the Wi-Fi. And wish me luck. Not a bad looking little build, right? This is actually, for how small this thing is, I am freaking really liking it. Fresh air coming across both our GPU and our CPU. Just about the whole back of this thing. Oh, top and other side are all mesh. Oop, I will do those then. I'll also do a wardrobe change. And I'll use both of those opportunities to show off the newest technicalstore.com. This is our map of Siberia desk pad. Freaking awesome. It's full of little inside jokes and puns. And this one is our fabulous fiber optic hoodie. I want to make sure XMP is enabled so we get the most out of our memory. We're going to spend the damn money on one performance. And right out of the gate, what a great experience. We're looking at anywhere from to 60 FPS on average, but we are dipping quite a bit lower, but on a game that is meant to be enjoyed on a console, this is a more than adequate frame rate. And the best part, check this out, guys. This is absolutely freaking cranked with no upscaling. So if I was to switch over to DLSS, even at the quality setting, okay, now we're talking. Average FPS around 80. And DLSS quality these days is it's pretty darn good. Cyberpunk 2077 might be getting a little bit on the older side now, but it's still really good high settings. And that is exactly what we are running then. I'm talking ray tracing ultra, everything set to high. Yes, we're using a little bit of resolution upscaling, but no, we're not using any frame in order to get a nice, solid 60 to 70 FPS average, and maybe more importantly, really consistent frame time from sitting around 50 FPS on the most. This is a very smooth gaming experience, and just like PlayStation 33, I can now more if I wanted like 100 plus FPS. I say my headcanon is working out great here. Who cares if the 5080 and the 5090 exist? This is offering up a great gaming experience. How about we try something a little bit bigger? Forza Horizon 6. Damn, that looks good. And smooth. Over 100 FPS average, and we're dipping down to like, I think I saw as low as 70, but that's not happening very often. This is freaking great. Okay, we are using a little bit of upscaling here. Quality, but I think we can go further. Maybe ultra ray tracing. Oh man, does that ever look more realistic though? That is. I have seen some differences between classic illumination and ray traced illumination before. That was a pretty noticeable one. We're still getting 77 FPS more than enough for racing. I mention the system is like very reasonable.
Needs to be solved. Let's move.
At the back of it. So this is the worst case scenario. Here, I'm gonna let the game run. Being around at the front, where the window sits in between me and the noise-making components, can you even catch it on the mic? That's great. Just for fun, let's see how many FPS we can get with something we like. This is 400 FPS! Let's go! In conclusion, are things a little tough right now? Yeah, they are. But you can still build a butt-kicking 4K gaming machine that can rip up any AAA game on the market for under $2,000. And whether you're looking at something like that or something more entry-level, our sponsor, Seasonic, has the power supply for you, and they'll back it for longer than your system is likely to stay useful. If you guys enjoyed this video, why not check out one of our past build guides, like The Last Guide You'll Ever Need. It's a really helpful video with the system you're putting together. It doesn't happen to be using these exact components. It gives you a lot of the principles how to select parts and how to assemble just about anything.
I should be close to that.
At my signal, flank the enemy here. Clear this area. The horsemen will take up the rear.
กินบ้างหรืออะไรจะดูครับจะเร็ว
The rules in tennis are strange enough. By explaining the scoring system to your friend who doesn't watch tennis, you can see their reaction. Now, in tennis, there are hundreds of competitions across both tours, but one tournament stands out for the strangest rules, traditions, and it just so happens to be the most prestigious of them. What exactly are the reasons behind the uptight traditions that has the night? The dress code, the food, and the quirks that nobody can fully explain. Wimbledon's the oldest Grand Slam, and white has been the uniform since day one. Unless you slip and fall on the court, break a blister, and bleed through your points, which seems to be the only exception to the rule. Back in Victorian times, lawn tennis blew up from Britain's upper class, and sweating in public was considered flat-out improper. White didn't sweat better than darker fabrics, so it stuck, and by 1963, it was officially written into the rule book. By the 80s, players were sneaking in stripes and patterns, so the All England Club clamped down even harder. Since 2014, the rule reads that competitors must wear, quote, attire that's almost entirely white, end quote, with exactly one trim of color allowed anywhere, and capped at 1 centimeter. That covers everything from headbands, wristbands, socks, to shoe soles, and even medical tape. As expected, the rulebook has given officials plenty of people to chastise. Anna Kournikova had to borrow shorts from her coach in 2002 after showing up to practice in black ones. Federer's Nike shoes got banned in 2013 with orange soles. Venus Williams made headlines by wearing a pink sports bra in 2017. And Nick Kyrgios got fined over 12,000 pounds for a red Jordan out in 2022.
Why didn't you also set with bright red trains on them to into a red cap?
Oh, and I'm not done yet. Ons Jabeur had to change out of a black t-shirt in 2023. Djokovic needed special medical clearance just to wear a knee brace in 2024. And well, Andre Agassi, he flat out boycotted the tournament for years, partly because he couldn't stand them. The one real concession came in 2022, when dark undershorts were finally allowed beneath white skirts. And after almost 150 years, someone finally caught on to the obvious.
I went on the pill to stop myself bleeding because I knew we had to go white undershorts. I didn't want to face any embarrassment.
Sometimes I'll go to the bathroom just to check, make sure that nothing was showing.
These days, things aren't as uptight, and players like Naomi Osaka are pushing the fashion further with flamboyant outfits, though outfits that are flamboyantly still within the corset of rules. Purple and green are Wimbledon's official colors. You'll see them on every ticket, sign, and piece of merch. These colors were adopted all the way back in 1909 after the club realized its old color scheme was basically identical to the Royal Greens. Obviously, that wouldn't fly, so what did the All Wimbledon Club do? They trademarked the combo in 2016. Nobody's ever explained the choice, but the green is weird. Green for the grounds, purple for the exclusivity. As a spectator, you don't have to wear white, purple, or green, but plenty of people dress sharp anyway, since the whole place is polished and hard and hard energy. I will say that comfortable shoes, layers, sunscreen, and something for rain are the real rescue. Just as sacred as the colors is the grass itself. Wimbledon's the only slam still played on the surface. Grass, well, the gene is everything. How fast the ball moves, how it bounces, how players have to adjust their whole game. All 18 championship courts at Wimbledon are 100% perennial ryegrass, and prep for next year starts the moment this year's final ends. Through the winter, the grass sits at 13 millimeters, then gets trimmed down exactly 1 millimeter a week come spring until it hits the tournament spec of 8 millimeters. The sweet spot for a consistent bounce without the turf falling apart over 2 weeks of silence. Courts get mowed 2 or 3 times a week starting in May, and then daily was the tournament. A full grounds crew and an independent turf consultant track moisture and firmness the entire time. Maintenance crews must brush, roll, and paint the lines daily, keeping everything perfectly pristine. Unfortunately, wildlife is the real enemy of that grass. Fox urine can kill patches of grass, so the club runs electric fencing and guard dogs to keep foxes out. Pigeons are handled differently by Rufus, the hawk who's been patrolling the grounds and standing on duty since the early 2000s. Bird of prey on payroll to scare off other birds. Given how much work goes into the grass and how seriously the club takes its image, smashing a racket on court will be costly. Serena Williams, Heather Watson, and Djokovic have all been fined tens of thousands of pounds for it in years. Wimbledon has sponsors like every major event, but you'd hardly know it sitting courtside. The show courts stay clean of the loud advertising you see at most sporting events, which keeps the focus on tennis and protects that recognizable art aesthetic. Simply put, the branding lives in the retail areas and activations around the grounds rather than on the court itself. Center Court's iconic ivy has been growing for about a century. Court 1 has a full living wall. Throw in another 50,000 plants across the grounds, and I should mention that they're almost all coordinated to perfectly match the purple-green white pattern. Before you get anywhere near the grounds, there's the queue. About 7,000 same-day tickets are released daily on a first-come, first-served basis. People have been lining up for these since 1927, and in an era of digital ballots, resale markets, it's one of the last truly public ways into a major business sport. This is the queue. There's 1,800 people here, is what the guy just said. It feels like we're at a festival. Camping out the night before has become its own phenomenon, a temporary village of strangers that forms and vanishes every single day of the tournament. And while the wait to the gates is long, time flies pretty fast. As they wake us up at about 5:15 in the morning, but we don't actually have to get moving until 7. So one of the most interesting things about the queue is that in the morning, it basically just becomes like a giant breakfast picnic. They do some food options here: waffles and coffee, churros and coffee, burgers, coffee. And I don't know who wants a burger at 6 in the morning. Taste salty. The queue was interesting. Having survived it myself last year and actually making a video on it that you can totally check out after this one, I'd say that the queue is a tradition unlike any other in tennis. In a way, it kind of contradicts the uptight, aristocratic nature, you could say, of Wimbledon because it literally democratizes tennis for the masses. Anyone can show up, wait in line, and they'll probably get a spot watching some of the best tennis in the world the next day. That's a far cry from the exclusivity at the French and the outrageous ticket prices of the US Open. If you haven't gotten to show court tickets but still want to watch live, matches at Wimbledon, Henman Hill, 6 stars. The grassy bank remains the tournament's open-air cinema, where fans watch center court and court one on giant screens. For anyone with just a grounds pass, it might just be the best seat in town. Now, a significant chunk of the culture at SW19 revolves around the Freedom Drinks. The tradition reportedly goes back to Henry VIII's court, where his alma mater Thomas Wolsey is said to have first served the combo at a royal banquet. Henry then kept it going at his own king's courts. Strawberries were a serious luxury in Victorian England and only in season during the summer, which lined up perfectly with the tournament's June and July dates. That being said, Wimbledon is the only major, and perhaps one of the only major global sporting events, where you can bring in your own food. Still, nothing beats the real thing. Over the fortnight, Wimbledon goes through roughly 14,000 liters of cream and 50 tons of strawberries. Around 2 million individual berries supplied daily by teams and farmers for the day. All of this for the reasonable price of roughly £3 per serve. A must-try for everyone. Except if you're a Rita Sabalenka.
I would say that I'm not a fan of strawberries with any sort of cream. I just like fresh strawberries.
Strawberries aren't the only concession. The Pimm's Cup showed up here in 1971 and never left.
Best tournament drink by far.
Amber, fizzy, loaded with cucumber, mint, summer fruit. It's basically the tournament in a glass. And I should say, dangerously easy to drink. Wimbledon sells over 320,000 glasses per fortnight, and Pimm's on the Hill is practically its own event. I'm not much of a drinker, but I had to try one. It was genuinely good, and
was what India managed, and that's the final result. England win the series 1. They take both T20Is and ODIs. And today's Pujara, well, it's been a tough case so far for Team India. They have been in a ground where it's very good batting first, no doubt. So near yet so far to win for Team India. Yeah, it was, I think, I think this disappointed because it was a pitch where if they don't hit the team, then it's still gettable, but 387 was, I think, a little too much. But they lose to any batters. I think, despite having 387 goal, the way Indian batting started, they looked in complete control. They didn't lose too many wickets in the power play. They more Indian teams in the power play. They were just somewhere close to 60 without losing a wicket. Almost 40 goals of India was in the run chase. But that pitch, I think, England is very close to the English way. Sam Brown, Matthew, Ali Masood, all the players going on that pitch. I think the last pitch was 120 runs that you can make. But then for me, when you take those honest games, they get the runs, but the 87 that was very, very technical. Actually, based that they did really well, but need that kind of finish, that was not the kind of finish. In fact, in 47 over, India was ahead of England in the left change, but then last few overs changed the game completely. And that's the lesson which Indian young bowlers would understand from this kind of game, where had a good position of the sixes in them. Some had how to close that, but yeah, right, this man of his team batting took its time. India was 49 so first 10 overs, but then he gave it a youngest pace of the game and ended up standing the state. I think
They can let it off.
Almost 20 years ago, something is flipping right now faster than almost anyone predicted. India now builds roughly 1 in 4 iPhones. Something is flipping right now faster than almost anyone predicted. India now builds roughly 1 in 4 iPhones on the entire planet. See, in the past year, Apple went from 36 million iPhones assembled in India to 55 million. That's a 53% jump in 12 months. So these numbers are pretty crazy, but get this. For the first time ever, that includes the iPhone Pro Max, and that's the most expensive iPhone that Apple sells. The one with the tightest tolerances, the hardest components to get right, the phone that was supposed to be untouchable outside of China. Apple set the I kind of figured that this meant a small, symbolic assembly line they would do somewhere in India. Like, like a press release, a few thousand units for the local market. Just enough for Apple to technically say that it makes iPhones there without actually meaning that much in practice. But the Pro Max is actually really hard to build. It demands a level of precision that until recently you could only find in China. I mean, that precision took 3 decades to build, factory by factory, supplier by supplier. But what actually changed? I mean, why did the hardest phone Apple makes suddenly become buildable somewhere else? By the way, this whole story is way bigger than just Apple. Samsung, Google, Dell, HP, and Lenovo are all quietly doing versions of the same thing right now. And if this pattern continues, the label made in China will start losing its grip on the entire global economy. So in this video, I'm going to break down what's actually driving all this and what happens next. What does this do to China's grip on manufacturing? What Trump actually wants from Apple, where that stands now, and what India is risking by betting this big. Also, whatever happened to Vietnam and all this? So Apple first said that it was going to diversify out of China back in 2019. The expectation was that this would take a decade, maybe longer. A pilot factory, a handful of older models, maybe mostly symbolic for the headlines to appease the US government. Meanwhile, the real manufacturing stayed exactly where it always had. See, nobody expected India to jump from 18% of global iPhone output to 25% in about 2 years. And nobody expected that jump to include the premium phones. But what changed? Well, things are only accelerating now because recently, India wiped out import duties on the components that go inside every iPhone. Things like wireless charging modules and lithium-ion battery cells. That's between 5 to 7.5% safe. So the Indian government is now making a long-term bet and putting it into law. At the same time, India rebuilt its export subsidy program. This is the program that's been quietly paying manufacturers bonuses since 2021 based on how much they can export. This year, they made the rewards even bigger to drive more exports. Apple's suppliers are cashing in, but so is everyone else. Samsung built the largest mobile phone factory on Earth in India, doubling its output to 120 million phones a year. Foxconn partnered with HCL Tech to build a semiconductor plant. Dell, HP, Lenovo, they've all committed to building tech hardware locally too. I mean, India is building an entire electronics economy around this movement. So what does this mean for China? Apple is probably the hardest company on Earth to actually pull off this move because it has bigger volume than almost anyone, tighter precision than almost anyone. So if Apple can move a quarter of its production out of China in just 2 years, that's a signal of
number of models are the same.
like much bigger than just this company. See, a lot of people assume Apple builds the iPhone in a single Chinese factory, but that's wrong. It actually takes hundreds of factories across the country to produce one device. Final assembly might happen at a massive complex like Foxconn's Zhengzhou plant, nicknamed iPhone City, but the parts and raw materials come from over 200 suppliers worldwide, with a huge chunk of those component factories based in mainland China. You can imagine how insane it is to actually move its entire ecosystem to another country, especially a country like India. But here's the real question. Can an economy that grew powerful by being irreplaceable actually survive being replaced? Even a little? I mean, even at the edges? See, China's advantage was never actually just about like cheap labor. I mean, plenty of countries have cheap labor. Indonesia, Vietnam. But what China built was density. If you need one specific machined part, you can find 50 different suppliers within an hour's drive of almost any factory in the country. So that kind of network cannot just get built overnight in India, even with a lot of money. There's even a new analysis that puts a real number on all this. Fully cutting China out of the picture would actually cost both the US and Europe a combined $23 trillion over the next 25 years. I mean, that's insane. Because China spent decades building all of this network, to decouple China from manufacturing overnight, well, you have to build an entire second version of that infrastructure somewhere else from the ground up. The average person spends about 5 years of their life doing tasks on a computer. I'm talking about emails, spreadsheets, copying and pasting between platforms, all of the stuff that nobody actually wants to be doing. Now, you would think that this is just part of the job. But I started paying attention to how the smartest teams I know are quiet. Here for sponsoring this week's video, and now back to the video. Now, technically it's doable, but it's brutally expensive, which is why most people who study all this think that fully decoupling isn't what's actually going to happen. What's coming is a partial decoupling. Companies picking their spots instead of just like ripping the whole thing out. So here's my question. China makes roughly 97% of the world's shipping containers. You know, the literal steel boxes that move stuff around the planet. Now, India only just started shipping its own export-grade containers this year, and yet it still managed, remember that 53% jump in iPhone output in just 12 months. All of this means that India is not letting anything stop. So what does this mean for the US? Here's what's actually pushing all of this. Tariffs.
Say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary.
See, American duties on Chinese goods have climbed as high as 145%. India's rate sits around 26%. Trump did not just want Apple to leave China because he's not the biggest fan of China and he thinks it's competing with China. He wanted Apple to build in America. Last year, he pushed Tim Cook publicly, and Apple responded by pledging $500 billion towards U.S. manufacturing and infrastructure over 4 years. Things like a new server factory in Texas and an expanded advanced manufacturing fund. Now, that's the deal that Trump got. But here's the catch. Apple is building more in America and building more in India at the same time. See, Trump has made it clear that he'd rather see the phones themselves made in the U.S., not just servers and back-end infrastructure. But so far, that hasn't happened. And most analysts will say that an American-made iPhone would cost thousands of dollars more to build. And India has had its share of kind of run-ins with Trump's trade policies. Trump added a 25% tariff on India in 2025. That was unrelated to phones. It was just over its continued purchases of Russian oil. Now, that pushed India's overall tariff rate as high as 50% for some months before it got pushed back down. So what does this mean for you and me? If tariffs keep pushing manufacturing out of China and India costs 5 to 10% more to build in, well, someone has to eat the gap. Maybe it's Apple's margins, maybe it's how much you pay for your next iPhone. Reshoring sounds good on paper, but US manufacturing employment kept falling even as tariffs rose. So that big bet is not paid off yet for anyone. Okay, what does this all mean for India? This could be like India's biggest win it's had in decades. Let's look at all the pieces together. So Foxconn building a plant expected to create 50,000 jobs. Tata Electronics is one of India's biggest industrial names, and it's now directly building iPhones. Apple is also in early talks with Indian chipmakers about local semiconductor work, which is a much deeper commitment than just assembling iPhones. But right now there's actually real pressure on India to move fast. Can it fix its power grid problems in time? Patch the logistics holes? Here's a question I just thought of. Whatever happened to Vietnam? Remember a few years ago it looked like it would be like the real winner of this China versus US story? Well, it actually turns out that Vietnam is thriving too, it's just doing a different job. Vietnam's tariff rate on exports to the US actually dropped quite a bit, making it one of the cheapest places on earth to ship from. Samsung, Intel, and LG all have major operations there. But here's the catch, a lot of what Vietnam does is final assembly of parts that were already made in China. One analyst found that some Vietnamese factories were adding less than 5% of the actual value to the product, basically screwing together Chinese components and shipping them onward. So the real story here goes beyond just China versus India. One thing has already happened, and it happened recently. The question of whether Apple would ever move its best phone out of China is no longer like hypothetical, right? The total iPhones is sitting at 25% and it's climbing, and right now with the one phone that nobody thought would move out of China, it has moved out, it's moved to India. I want to know, where do you predict this all goes? Does India keep climbing? Does Vietnam quietly win by doing less and costing less? Or will China find a way to hold on to the thing that builds its whole economy? Tell me below in the comments, and subscribe if you're new here. It helps support this channel massively, and I'll see you in the next video.
Banagata Road is actually running Olympics for the US. Banagata Road is actually running Olympics for the US.
73% of the revenue comes from US, 20% of the revenue comes from Europe, and recently listed the company at $825 million.
Very brash and arrogant sort of vision we started off with. People laughed at us in 2016. Today, roughly almost 60% plus of all of US TV channels runs on an Amagi infrastructure.
At one point in time, we just said, enough of this hardware mess. Let's only do it on the cloud. That moment was the transformative moment for Amagi.
NBC, Comcast, largest media company in the world, they said, hey, you cannot sign the order because we want to know your financials. And I was scared because we are, I think, less than $10 million, and the deal was a $17 million deal at the time. How do we sign a $17 million deal? We were discussing, do we really need an IPO? Because
You guys also bought back shares, but most of the founders wait for the events of liquidity.
see, we are really
Hi Shrividya, hi Bhaskar, welcome to the Neon Show. I'm so excited to be talking to you both today. And I'm just so amazed and so proud of the journey you guys have lived in the last 9 years. You guys are building a global streaming infrastructure company. 73% of the revenue comes from US, 20% of the revenue comes from Europe, and recently in January listed the company at $825 million. What an amazing milestone. And truly a classic example of starting a company in India and building for the world. And it all started with 3 friends in college in Coimbatore who decided to build a company, that too for the next 30 years, right? And it should start in India. So why all these 3 things were so important for you guys when even the product was not there?
So maybe there's 2 parts here, right? So if you look at it, when we got out of college, we were fairly clear we want to start. So, and Srini, Vidya, and myself said, okay, let's go. We were 24, didn't have anything to really lose, if you will. So we said, let's go, just try something. We didn't have a product, we didn't do anything more, right? So when we started, it was more of an unconscious, first company that we did, which was called ImpulseSoft. It was an unconscious venture. What I mean by unconscious, I don't think we were thinking about, we were just young folks trying to do something together. Came together and said, let's go do it. We didn't think about the future, we didn't think about what's going to happen and all of that. And you see, 5 years later, we sold the company. And I think, so we didn't know why we were building it, we didn't know why we sold it. To some extent, it was at 29, we had actually exited our first incident has happened, and we're trying to figure out what we want to do in life. Literally.
You seem.
At that point in time, I think we started becoming more conscious about we couldn't do a second venture.
Trust me.
You are a
Then
good man.
we needed for legacy and
But your
longevity,
idea of an
wanting to build something much more
honorable
mindful.
children.
So that's the reason at that point in time we
I
stopped and said we will
see
actually first
that
understand
top-down
where we want to
simply
grow
to test
as
them.
individuals as well as from
Leave
building
women and
institutions
children
rather than
die
trying
in
to
the
look at
flames
what's
of
the
their
business
burning
plan, what's the
homes.
idea. Those are all coming next.
To the
But the value system and the reason why we do this has to be fairly clear. That's where we started this whole
Someone must be
process.
willing to try.
So basically,
We are
when we
fortunate
started
to
working
have
in
you.
TI, and after
Yes, Kate.
having understanding of how software is being built, how can you contribute, what can you do, soon we understood that we can do products for the world. That was very clear to us after a couple of years in TI. We call it as TI. So I think after about 2-3 years, he came and asked, saying that, hey, it's my dream to build a new company, and I want to start something here. I want to be an entrepreneur. You guys want to join me? So we said that why not? Definitely, let's do something. So the whole thing was about trying out new things. So while from the external point of view, you feel that they've left a cushy job. The way in which at least I convinced my father was, what big deal? If this doesn't work, you can always go back. So, but let's try. So that's how we started.
And then you both were already dating when the first company was started?
No, we were not actually. I think we were good friends in college. So I don't think we ever had any sort of relationships. We were like friends. I think once we came to Bangalore, then we thought we were starting together. And I think actually we got married after our first startup was founded. So it was not a.
This was also Bhaskar's idea.
This was wonderful idea. So in fact, someone else also asked me who proposed first. In fact, I didn't know. So
And the marriage happened after the acquisition?
no, 2001 we got married.
In the midst of the journey of early startup actually.
Okay.
Companies.
And then tell me one more story. I was reading about it that when you guys sold the first company, Pulsoft, and when you were brainstorming about the idea, and you were sitting in the park, and the palmist came. What was that story?
So
Very
essentially,
interesting for our audience.
yeah, essentially in 2008, we were like, we had quit the company which we sold, and then we were coming out of the company which acquired us. This company called Surf, which acquired us. And Vidya was pregnant with our second son, and we were kind of starting to debate what's the next one we want to do. And we didn't have a space to go, we didn't have an office to go. So we used to sit in the JP Nagar, there's a mini forest park. So we used to go there in the morning, sit there on a bench there, and spend half a day debating what's the next thing to do. That was a real routine in some sense. I remember on a Monday morning, we were sitting together, three of us. Again, we were like heated debates about why we should do things, and obviously all of us have strong ideas in life. So we went to kind of discussing it, debating, and to a point where we were discussing about targeted advertising. We were thinking targeting is going to be important, and we were kind of debating. And at that point in time, a small young boy walked up, and he was like, I was starting to stop us, saying, I thought he thought we were fighting with each other to stop us. But to some extent he stopped, and I said, well, what do you need? And he said, no, I'm actually a palmist and I can actually tell you a future. We're really debating something interesting, so don't worry, we don't need it, thank you. Then I stopped, why? Think about that. That boy, he understood that if you're at 11 a.m. on a Monday morning, sitting in a park, three young people, literally you're jobless. That means you better know your future. So your future is completely uncertain. That's the reason you're in a park. At this point in time, he's targeting us very well. So he knew that you need your future. So that was the kind of
You got the validation in the park.
So I was telling them, saying, here is what targeting works of a person.
How much time do you guys take after the company got acquired and before?
We had a 2-year deal with them.
Okay.
A couple of years we spent with them, and pretty much after that left.
So after the transition, we left, and then we started debating what to do, right? And then we started the 2008.
There was always this clarity that you guys would start the company together.
Yeah, we told them upfront when they acquired.
So three of us also kind of always like feeling that I think we need to do together. Always we've been like, that's something of almost an unwritten rule, at least three of us had, that whatever we do.
And how do you divide the roles and responsibilities? Because I remember that they're talking about it in one of the interviews that initially there were no roles, designations in the company.
In Amagi, we had no role specification for everyone. Basically, the only role was there, designation won't be there. It'll never say VP or anything like that, including the founders. In fact, my role is basically I'm an engineer. I love to solve problems. That's all I had learned. So yeah. So between the three of us, he's the dreamer. He dreams, like he comes up with an idea. And for him, once the idea is appealing to him and he kind of does all the mental thing, and for him it feels like done. For me, I have to realize the dream. Then it feels good. And for Srini, it requires numerical analysis has to be there.
This should make sense.
This should make sense. Right? And he is a number man.
Yeah.
I'm a person who needs to do. I need to do and see it work. Only then I'm happy. He is the one who envisages the ideas. This is how, we didn't really say that Bhaskar, you do this, Srini, you do it. But eventually it became like this.
Yeah. But if you come with the idea and you have to convince the other two people, doesn't it feel, a baggage on the shoulder? What if it goes wrong?
No, we've done hundreds of
You take the
mistakes.
risk and it'll get
No, it will always work. We have done hundreds of mistakes as a team, right? One unwritten rule that three of us have between us is very simple. Once we align on doing something together, we will never blame each other for what we do. That's like it doesn't matter what decision we make. We will all make their decision, we'll make mistakes, but always the three of us impact each other.
Water here is clear, well suited to forging.
So that we'll never have
It is a good sign.
you told me, we did it, not because we've always been that way. And
Hello
that's
there.
unwritten rule in the way we operate.
And we have no fear to discuss an idea. In
You
fact,
mentioned
what
the
we
dead
used to
old
do is
to
we
me.
discuss an idea and we'll
What
see
was it?
if that idea
When
needs
Lord
to for 1
Nobunaga
week,
came to
2
Sakai,
weeks, 2 weeks.
he commanded
But
my
no,
parents
then
to
it's
make
something that's
weapons
worth
for his
pursuing.
soldiers.
Because if it goes away after some time because you found some problems, then it's not
Soldiers
worth
came
pursuing.
and told them,
Can
I
you
am
recall some of the
sorry,
fights
I
or
escaped this
disagreements?
comical
Also,
healing
it
from
happens
family.
pretty regularly.
That
They're
is typical
they're
of me.
completely different people.
My parents will be happy that I am
And
here.
I can tell you when we were kind of pivoting the company in 2016, wanting to do this whole cloud-based approach of broadcasting and all this stuff we're trying to do.
Goal
I
safe.
remember a conversation Srini today and me were discussing, and we were proposing saying we do cloud play out and all this. And Srini, as usual, went and looked at the TAM, came back, said the total market size is $10 million.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? So
Yeah.
argument with him. And when they're saying how will it work in the cloud, we don't even know. And I was on the view said, hey, I'm going to imagine it. Let's try. Worst case, we're going to fail, but at least let's try. And I think fortunately all three of us said, okay, let's go. Because choices were very less anyway. So we said, let's go.
This is a very interesting segment. I'll talk about it in detail. But before we talk about Amagi and this pivot, Bhaskar, if you can just give us some sort of elevator pitch, like with the biggest achievements you guys have had at Amagi. So a little bit of introduction and then the achievements.
Amagi, as we are a media technology company. From founding days, I think we started with the assumption that we build something which will disrupt the market. Whatever the market we get in, we should disrupt it. It should be large enough, and it should be for a long time that we should build this as a kind of and we don't call it a corporation, we like to call it an institution. And I'll come to some of the value systems that we follow and why we can treat it that way. So that was the first thing that we started off with. Amagi started in what's called geo-targeted advertising on TV, which essentially meant that if you're watching a Z or a Colors in the 2010-12 time frame, for example, you would watch same ad spot if you're in Bangalore, you'll see a different ad, what you see in Mumbai or Delhi or Punjab. So the idea was that we split the satellite beam across the country. So every part of the country will have different ads on the same ad spot. This was the core idea that we came in with. And obviously, it was crazy as hell. People said it won't work in India because of the complexity of cable and satellite. It won't work, people don't pay money. A whole slew of no's that was there in that sense. But we kind of, being bullheaded, we said, oh, let's go. If somebody says no, it's actually exciting for us to go about it. So we took that as a challenge. The next 6 years, we really launched the company and actually worked. I feel very proud of what we could build as at that point in time from targeted advertising because we built India's largest targeted advertising infrastructure. We had the likes of Unilever, Wipro, Glaxo, P&G, everybody operating in the platform. So that was a big milestone for us. for a reason we have to pivot and talk later, but that's a great milestone for us. When we started this part of the business, which is the new Margi, what I call 2.0 version of it, we started with the fundamental assumption, very simple assumption. If you look at any media business, for example, there is a camera on one side and there is a TV or a screen or a phone where we're watching content. We naively so start with the assumption that everything in the middle should go. There'll be no hardware in the middle. From the point of a camera till the point of TV set, can we take everything as a software infrastructure on the cloud that we can actually run the largest TV networks in the world? Very brash and arrogant sort of vision we started off with. People laughed at us in 2016, but what's happened in the journey, I think we have also been lucky and fortunate in the journey. The industry started changing and the industry started adopting cloud infrastructure over the years. Two big changes that we've been part of. One is called FAST, which is the free ad-supported TV as a model. Started coming up in the US in 2016-17. We were very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. We became the technology backbone for this whole industry. Today, roughly almost 60% plus of all of US TV channels in this whole thing runs on an Amagi infrastructure. And that's been, again, we got an Emmy Award last year for that, where the TV industry worldwide actually awarded Amagi as a pioneer in bringing a technology which actually changed the industry. And that's coming out of India and coming there is a really good broad moment for us, for our teams and engineers who should build this whole capability for this. Second thing that's interesting happened is 2020. The large TV networks worldwide started to want to change. We started working with NBC Comcast, which is the largest media company in the world, wanted to move to the cloud. And for some reason, they decided they will work with a small company out of Bangalore to kind of go through that transformation journey. Today, I'm proud to say that in the last 5-6 years, we run a Super Bowl for them. We ran the Olympics for them, with all the Winter Olympics. So we've become the backbone of this company in terms of all their live and linear playing systems today for them. So, like I think one of the investors are telling me that Banana Road is actually running Olympics for the US to watch, Super Bowl to watch. I think that's been a fascinating journey for us as a company. Obviously, I think that we're in a very early phase of the transformation, and we're extremely excited about the next decade of what's going to happen. So the going public was a milestone as well for the company, which I think we thought it's going to be a normal. Obviously, when we started the company, slightly over arrogant, we thought we will actually be public. There's no big deal, but that didn't happen for a long time because we had to go through the pivot. But I think it's a very good, humbling experience to get there, do that particular milestone. But truly, we feel much more responsible now for the next 10 years in building this thing. That's where I see.
Why do you say you're still very early in the journey? I remember you talking about that it's just 10% of the market that you guys have captured so far.
Yeah, so basically, if you look at it, the modernization of this, see, these are all these industries which have been regarded and adopted technology are moving through a giant transformation. A transformation where hardware and satellites and OB-vans and everything that you see as a lot of infrastructure in television has always been very hardware and people. That is a big change happening in the industry where everything is becoming software driven. We truly believe that it's in a very, very early phase. Just 10% of the largest TV networks in the world have moved to the cloud. And there's 90% worldwide. And television is a global business. So all of this has to eventually transform to the cloud. And we truly believe we have the right to win and build those capabilities. And that's the reason I think next 10 years is extremely exciting for us.
And let's also talk about the pivot that you guys did in 2018, right?
Yes.
And so the whole geo-tagging technology you worked on from scratch, right? You built the whole technology from scratch. So when he said that let's just move to cloud business, how was your reaction to that pivot?
He was saying for a reason. So the reason which he said we'll describe later, I'll describe it now. The biggest challenge with the geo-targeting business was that basically it was cannibalizing the business of the TV networks. So let's say I'm a TV network salesperson. I don't want to GSK and ask for the deal for nationally. Now GSK was saying, I need only West Bengal and Tamil Nadu and I can take it from Mumbai. So it was cannibalizing their own business, and they started giving us a lot of constraints to sell, which agency to work with and so on and so forth. So at one point we felt that the business will not be as profitable as it should be. So at that point, we had no other choice that we were left with except to try this out globally. By the time we had got to, I think one or two shows in the US, broadcast shows, where people come and look at the technology, and there was reasonably interesting. So that's what he was trying to pick up. So while it hurt us, because we had built a sales team which was doing the sales, and we had to let go of those people. So we exit for them, right? Like, why does it? There's no other choice. We at least have to try the second one. So we took it. It was difficult, but we took it in a wholehearted way, and we decided to try it in a wholehearted way. And the good news about the second thought, the Amani 2.0, was that when we did Amani 1.0 itself, we were doing everything on our own. So therefore, adopting the technology into the new products that we were trying to was not such a big challenge.
Yeah. And what was the scale of the business?
Old business was roughly about 180 crores. So it is actually, so we didn't do it then. The business was not doing. We were predicting that the business was doing well to some extent.
That was the difficult part, right?
Correct. And again, this is like, see, we had reached about almost 25 million.
Okay.
We had spent $20 million. We had $5 million at the bank. I remember the distinct conversation that we went to the board and said we would shut this business down. And we doubled that business that year in terms of revenue, at least from a top line standpoint. But like what Vijay pointed out, all the structural deficiencies we felt. If we are going to run it for the next 30 years, we knew that this is not a structurally solid business design that we were actually doing, because we were dependent on 3 large TV networks, literally being the mercy of them in terms of cost structures and all the compliances. So that was fairly clear to us that we have to pivot. But I think our board was like, we had a thesis on which we actually put the money. So and we had $5 million in the bank. We told them we're going to really pivot to a business. They said, how big is that business? It was few crores, I think 2-3 crores, if I remember right. And it was a hard conversation. But I think good news is they trusted us. Eventually they trusted and said, folks, you know it best. And they knew us that obviously we had built it for the last 8 years by then. And we were actually saying that we'll kill something what we did for 8 years in our journey and restart from scratch. And obviously we diluted the whole business both for ourselves and obviously for them. They thought it's a write-off. And they said, hey, you cannot put any more money in the business because we don't know your new thesis.
Yeah.
We said, no, we don't need it. We'll take the $5 million, rebuild the business again. So we went back pretty much as a start to some extent after 8 years.
And then raise any money?
We didn't raise money at all. We said we will sit tight, we'll just do everything back.
That's why you had to let go of the team. Otherwise, you would have kept them.
Not that they were actually local salespeople who were selling
Ad sales.
ad sales. So I cannot use it. That is the reason we had to. But also the engineering team remained intact. But the people who were involved in the operations and the sales had to be let go.
How big was the team that time? And now how many people?
1,000.
And how many of them are in Bangalore?
700 plus.
It's okay in India and in the rest of the world, say Europe and
Europe, US, we expect 100 people.
I think just maybe if you can talk about more about this part, that you had $5 million in the bank account, and then what happened in the next few months.
I think the first thing is obviously it was a emotionally hard moment for the team, because I think we had a fantastic team. The team actually had put all their heart soul into to get this where we were. So they were more friends and family for us rather than actually employees. So we had to call them and then say, you know what, we've tried this. At this point in time, you know the hardships we're going through this company. And so it was kind of a bittersweet sort of moment for all of us. Even today, we're all friends with each other. And so we had to first get that done. And simultaneously, we had to build this business to start. We went back to first principles and said, first we had to bring the cost structures down to where we could afford it. Number 2, we needed somebody in the US because we were all in India. Srini based in India. So the biggest call, I think, so we got Srini to take this. Srini was always a go-to-market person. So he had to uproot his family completely. What I'm sure all fathers do. Had to take them back, and he had kids who were in the 9th grade and 6th grade, for example, at one time. So they were born and brought up in India. But here was the situation that we had to do. So he took that call to kind of pretty much uproot the family from here, take them to LA, settle them down. We didn't even know how big the business was, but we had to take that call to do that and set that kind of completely new lifestyle that we settled there. Fortunately, he went to LA where I think the timing was right for the business. As I told you, the free ad supported part was starting to work. We found that to be the right place, right time, where we could be the technology vendor. And that was the moment I think we felt, okay, now a lot of product market fit was actually. So I think good news is obviously three of us are pretty much operating the business. That's since we were kind of hands-on. The company was a 40, 50 people team at that point in time. We had already become small. So I think that was the core of the business for us. We started our journey from the start. So every night we used to call and then she used to talk about what we get done. The rapidity at which we could deliver things our customers were surprised. Because we used to leverage the 24 hours very well. 12 hours discussion and then she used to call in the evening, late night. The team starts building things out. The next day morning when she's there, he actually got a product which he can actually put through the customers. So that is the sort of agility that we show. I think made a huge difference in terms of our own success. I think sacrifice of the strategy to go there and do that and the ability for the teams to do it, I think has been a change.
And how you guys were when this pivot happened?
We had already, I think, we had spent 8 years, I think, we were like almost close to 40. Yeah,
The time most of the second from the start.
pretty much.
And when the next round of funding happened?
So what we did is with $5 million, we actually became profitable as a company. By 2020, I think we were doing about $20 million in business. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
So we like from zero, we just kind of rapidly. And again, the company was pretty much doubling and tripling in some of the time. So we were kind of growing. And so given the size of the teams and others, we were already profitable. So we didn't actually need money.
Yeah.
Only reason is in 2021, I think our investors were invested in the early part of the journey. Obviously, timeline had come where they had to exit.
Yeah.
So a couple of those investors came back saying, that's all right. We love the business, what you guys are trying to look at. Really looks interesting, but we cannot, our journeys have to end here.
Yeah.
So incidentally, in 2021, early 2021, we did a deal with Accel, Northwest, and others, only as a secondary transaction. We said we don't need the money. So we didn't take any primary at that time. We said if you want to, they're ready to sell, folks can buy, we're not going to get involved. That's what it is. When it came in, I think before the next 6 months, we had actually already doubled. The company had started to become almost $30 million plus. And at that point in time, I think we all sat together and said, okay, now looks like we can build a $1 billion company at some scale we could actually build. Is it important for us to go look for some sort of money to be raised? Because that will help us to kind of expand the team. We were like having 7 people sales team, which is driving a $30 million ARR business. So I don't know, sometimes super efficient, sometimes it also burns up people. And we had a team which is very small in India as well. We didn't have a next level management team. So after that journeys where the late 2021 and 2022 is when we raised capital. Largely to kind of fund the business to the next level. And that's what the time started. First one we did was second one we did but I think partly there was also second thing because we wanted we did that. And then I think about $80 million, plus 80 plus 8, almost like we had about almost $100 million primary capital. $50 million was all secondary.
And if you can talk about the next phase after this funding.
So after the funding happened, so obviously see, we have more money than today, and that's great. All this, we've been always a very capital efficient company. Always company doesn't need us to we need a marketing because it's a vertical business that we have. Our biggest cost are people and nothing else. Right? So that's the way the business always been. So although we raised, I think, two raises we did, out of which I think close to $100 million was in the bank. So the money was not being used in the system. Having said that, the first thing we did is to obviously build the next layer of management teams. So we brought in head of sales, we brought in engineering teams, engineering heads, and all of that. We started building the next layer of teams. And that was a 2-year journey where we went through, again, we took a loss of business because we have built that public capacity thing that we did, after which we again came back. So that's the only elsewhere, like coming from middle class families, and they're like, at some point, we're not a very brash sort of, we don't spend a lot of money in most things in life. So it's literally getting our office to a point where it's able to work, getting things done. So we're like really, basics are covered. I think we are happy with that.
And before the IPO happened, company valued at, I think it's $1.2 billion.
Yeah.
And the IPO happened at $825 million.
Yeah.
So, if you talk about that.
So essentially, when it going public provides the as a liquidity premium in it. I can ask if you look at the book, why we did that. Investors now then public because they're like just 4 years, 3.5 years. So then wanted to the basic treasury. And for us as individuals, we like that. That's another thing. So the only motivation is for our teams and employees who kind of started the cycle that we spent more than a decade. Within and we know all the challenges bunch of the balances, the balance call. Emotion, I think, when they pointed out was saying our teams need liquidity. Eventually these people have been with us for so long. Buy their houses, car, buy stuff. At least have a legacy for saying, hey, I worked at Amagi, I got something is an important emotion. I think that is the core emotion of that course. The secondary part is our customers starting to large enterprise customers. For them, they wanted to keep down because our business is an enterprise business. So people want to feel comfortable that you are going to be for a long time. Public provides that credibility, the transparency, and eventually the respect in the industry that, hey, here is a company for longevity that we can trust with our infrastructure because these are mission critical infrastructure. I think in that sense, that was a real decision process that we made.
And you guys also bought back shares, right? But most of the founders wait for the events of liquidity, right?
See, we are really, this for us, we're leaning in heavy. This, we would have loved to have more share. As a company, I think we truly believe strongly the next decade is a transformation. And again, the conviction is extremely high. And that's the reason we want to lean in. Look at it, we did the policy moves. In fact, we had a challenge even getting our investors liquid in stock because they knew that the business is actually going well and really good. So it's always been that's learning. So high conviction is a very important part. We want to lean in and do things because we truly believe there's a big opportunity in front of us. So,
and then if you guys can talk about the version 2.0, like if you can break down the business model of Amagi 2.0.
So if you look at it, so fundamentally it's a software business. We are providing software to a TV channel. So think about any TV channel today. When they want to create a live sports or a news or an entertainment channel today, they buy software, they set up a studio, they take their cameras to all the field, and they bring what's called Ruby Van, it's a satellite which actually captures the cameras, sends it back to a production center, and the studio is and eventually send it to homes through distribution, either through satellite or through IP networks, so the event that we were watching. It involves a lot of hardware and real estate, which actually drives this business. What Amagi does today is to convert that to software. And when we converted to software, the biggest change we did is it was a capex intensive business. You have to buy all these equipment, create all of this. What we did was to convert the OpEx business. What do? We rescale from the shadow of others. We host our software and we pay money to an Amazon on a per basis. Similarly, our customers paid us on a per basis. So we made it a subscription model, which allows them to pay us per basis by the cost of goods, or in this case, the cost of servers and the software. That's the business. can launch their channel, run live sports and news, they pay long-term contracts. So the contracts are longer periods, but they make their That's the whole big change that we did for the industry. This is the genesis of SaaS, every other business. For the broadcast world, we brought in the idea of SaaS, of the device software. We place the hardware, the software, and the OpEx software. That's a big change.
And like we talked about before this conversation started, that 70% of revenue comes from US, and the kind of devices we have at Amagi. How do you convince them? This is the advice B2B founders, including who are building for US market, that you have to not just take team we have in India, but for a business team you have to be in US. So how hard it is to sell to US market, and the kind of logo you have being local company.
That's right. So
How was it before and how it has changed?
it changed dramatically, I can tell you. Right? So if you look at it, early days, we were so nobody believed that a company will be in broadcast tech. We were never known for tech, and one in broadcast was like a very mission critical software technology. So I don't think anybody thought that a company out of India would actually kind of be able to support them and run the most critical workloads ever, right? Two things are happening. One is, I think, given Shri was there, I think it helped us to create the sense of saying, hey, we are global. We are in the US. And people understood this whole idea of having GCC sort of operation environments in India. So there's not like, India was not in the place where people thought it's not something that they didn't know. They knew that India existed. So they treated us as somewhat of a local sort of presence. To that extent, that helped a lot. And I would think that having a founder having the presence is super important. If it was any other sort of another head of sales there, you wouldn't bring the emotion, the passion, the ability to convince people. I think so. Founders being there was a super important part of the journey for us from success. I think that's a very critical part. Number two, if you look at it, no large broadcaster decided that they will work with the marquee in one day. Obviously, it was a big journey for everybody to go through the process. What changed is obviously the industry change forced it to look at it. And what we've seen, again, this is something that we learned throughout the process. Is that we follow a book called The Crossing the Chasm. So this is a book by a person called Jeffrey Moore. Right? He talks about a mechanism of almost like Gaussian curve, binomial distribution curve that you see is the way how industries perform. There's early adopters, the first part of the graph. Visionaries, early adopters, pragmatists, and laggards. That's the way they talk. The bell jars, that's what it looks like. Obviously, the early adopters and the visionaries are people who are irrational.
If you wanted Nobunaga, you should have put the party yourself.
Lucky to work with companies and the CTOs and the decision makers of those companies who are irrational to some extent. Because if they had started calculating numbers, assessing Amagi as, hey, is it X to Y, I put an RFP, figuring it out, we wouldn't have crossed any of these milestones. These are people who felt, hey, here is Srini coming in and actually talking to me. I feel the passion of this person. They're delivering things in my POCs and stuff at the speeds at which I've not seen with my vendors. It's worth a bet. I know it's irrational in my heart, but let me take a bet and look at it. I'm not going to give the highest workloads to start with. I will give my fringe projects to you. Show me what you can do, and then let's see the whole process play out. I think that's where the journey starts. And we were really happy to lock down. Said, okay, let's get in these large organizations and demonstrate why we can be world class and do that. But the beauty is we were able to quickly get through that ramp curve of trust. Right? Today, some of our customers run tens of billions of dollars of content to a market infrastructure. Now, sometimes I feel I joke to my customers that the tide has turned, where they call me and say, hopefully you guys are clear because you are the backbone now.
Yeah.
So you cannot afford to fail. We cannot fail today because that actually will be a big challenge for them. And now the brand, the trust is so high in the industry today. For example, I think we just came from a show where I think all the top tier customers worldwide who wanted to be at Amagi where they said, okay, I want to meet these guys. Looks like they've been always innovative, creating new things, big trust. Obviously, that's been earned over a decade. And fortune also matters, luck is matters, not just being the right place. But also being choosy about which customers you start to work with, who can kind of carry you the journey. So for us, I think our biggest success is our customers, who actually took us where
Who were these early customers?
Huh?
Who were these early customers?
Early, for example, NBC Comcast, I think they took a bet, I think.
2019, they decided to start the project of
I think that was a big bet for them as a company. Fine, the NBC, I think they were like, I remember the day they said, hey, you cannot sign the order because we want to know your financials. And I was scared because we were like, we were, I think, less than $10 million. And the deal was a $17 million deal at the point time. So I'm thinking, the whole company is $10 million. How do you sign a $17 million deal? Then I remember going to Premji Invest, who's our investors, to get a blank, pretty much a blank commitment from them, saying they'll support the company. And I had to give that letter to NBC saying, you know what, trust us, we have backing which is really solid. Obviously, we have to bank on Premji's brand and Premji's Invest, saying that they're ready to back the company for whatever time and get it back. And so, of course, their finance team is procurement is saying, these guys, like, where are they coming from and why are they giving them money? Right? So some of this is also about the journey. It was a lot of these moments were lucky moments to some extent. Having the right people made a lot of sense.
I want to add something.
Yeah, please.
Basically, yes, founder presence is very important. The customers are coming to us. But media is a very brutal operation, right? Imagine we're watching a match and something goes blank.
Exactly.
That is super scared, right? So actually, our customers were very scared. Initially, Srini, I was running this pre-sales customer service all of this. So Srini used to tell me that, I need people in the US. I need people in the US. And I used to say, no, we'll do it from here. We are available 24/7. We are available in midnight. But customers were never convinced that is really true. And then slowly I turned, and then we hired a team. We set up a customer success team. We made sure that people are there. They saw the commitment. They saw that there is some phone number to call locally, and somebody will answer me if there is a problem. Once that trust comes, that is when people start trusting you a lot more, and things become easier. So we built a reasonable size. GTM team.
And what are the other customers we have?
450 customers.
The top names, we have Sinclair, who's one of our top customers, Lionsgate, DAZN, they are actually let's say, call it them the Netflix of sports, based from Europe. Then A+C, which is one of our first networks,
Fox,
the History
yeah.
Channel, Fox,
Warner Media.
Warner Media, Discovery.
How do we sign these contracts? Because this is such an sensitive, job. Because, like you said, if a second of screening goes off, it's a total mess, right?
So they also take a lot of time. That's why closing some of these deals take time, because they also go through a process wherein they look at the technical architecture, they compare, they do a proof of concept, they ask you to show the
Greetings,
evidence, region and show that the whole
Lord Nobunaga
all
will
those
be
they will also do.
avenged.
And
But I could use
when
more
they give
information
the SLA
on his
commitment, and make sure that you
I have spoken with others who have marked their movements.
ensure that the product really works the way in which it should.
Thank you,
When you're
Hiremasa.
talking about this part in detail, that there are some other clauses also in the contracts. If you can just talk about those clauses also.
There'll be a lot of clauses in SLA. First time when you had to do this SLA, I couldn't understand the actual meaning of 99.99.
Yeah.
99.99 means of a whole month. So you take the number of seconds, then you take like 1 of the total seconds that's available, right? That's about, I think 99.99 will give you about 30 seconds, right? 40 seconds.
No, 99 is 17 minutes.
40
We have
minutes.
less than 2, we had about 2 minutes was the downtime that we would do in a year for 99.999. So we had a finite.
Finance clause to the customers. So all of these you need to understand, and you need to make sure that you put in the thing which is something as achievable, physically achievable.
And if you mess up with that,
No, largely two parts. Like, so customers, when you write a contract, typically customers are wanting to protect themselves. So that's what it is. But what we've seen realistically is customers are really wanting to renew their intent. And obviously, we've never been fully perfect. I don't think any of us could be perfect, and they didn't expect us to be perfect as well. Every time they want to know, you think twice, are you going to go solve these problems for us? And actually become better, right? So as a company, if you look at it, all the value system ingredients is called vulnerability. Vulnerability is a very important trait for us in the company. Not only internally between our teams and leadership and everybody else, but also with our customers. With our customers, we always have a relationship where when something gets put up, we call them and say, we would never give them saying, this is something that we should have done, we will not solve it, it's our problem, we will go fix it. And proof point is obviously we fix it and demonstrate that we actually fixed it. So trust gets built when you go through those phases. In fact, I remember some of the enterprise customers came in and asked us, the first question they were asking us is, how many times have you gone blind? The naive answer is if I told them, they wouldn't have said it. They told me very clearly. The way I would say, not because you are not telling the truth, but we would believe that you've never done real broadcasting.
Yeah.
Because if you've really done real broadcasting, nobody gets it without a black screen. So everybody goes to the black. The question is, how did you come back and recover, and what you do is much more important for us. Or somebody naively telling them that it will never go back. In a complex business that we run today, it's the ability to know that but ability to recover from those failures, and more importantly, fix them forever so that you don't come back. I think that's the success of all of these systems, because systems are becoming more and more complex.
And so far we have talked about milestones of Maggi, the pivot happened, how did we decide for the whole IPO thing. What are the other 5 major decisions you guys have made?
I think the first decision starting together at Maggi, as I told you, one of the first things we did was to, what are the tenets that we would like to do? Because the big decision we made is next 30 years. Right? I think that was a decision which is a very deep decision, not easy. I think at some point we also thought we will be successful, which didn't happen in the first part of the journey. So it was a decision we stood together. And it's not like at the pivot level we said, okay, now it's not working, let's get to we didn't do it. 3 of us said, no, let's double up, let's do it. So that is a very important decision we made. At that point in time, we also took the decision to do something in India for India. That is a decision we changed in the midst of the journey for the business dynamics of what it was. But I think we kind of stood with that decision for a long time. And at some point, I think I remember one of the investors in the middle of the time when we were doing the India business, we were trying to raise money, we were talking to him, and he said, I think guys, the amount of work that you're doing in India, the same thing you do for any other country, you would have been a much more successful business than what you're trying to do in India. Why are you guys wasting the prime part of your lives trying to do that? I think we heard it, but we didn't want to pivot because we said, no, it's happening in India, we'll make this right. So that is the second part that I remember as part of the journey. Okay. The third is the pivot itself, which is a big uncertain event for the company. And we had to take a call to drop something which looked like success because revenues are growing in this. And yet in our minds, we never thought we'd be able to build a long-term, in a 30-year view, that 8 years was worth sacrificing to some extent. And 8 years has gone. So lots of people felt we are illogical and irrational at that point, trying to take a call to go to a very small business which never existed and try to build it versus try to take this. I think that is the third big decision that I feel truly about it. Fourth, I think Srini always comes back and tells me that by shrinking and making something more focused helps you rather than trying to do too many things. So when we started the new part of the business, the first thing we decided that we do one thing, just this. We'll only do one product. We'll only do one cohort of customers to people. So by sharply focusing ourselves, not trying to do, what happens there isn't fair. We said, okay, doesn't matter, we'll put every egg in that basket. Make sure that we'll make it successful. To an extent, till the point we know it's not successful, we'll know that we'll do it. I think that was a critical stuff where we could just truly, by focus brings a lot of strength to the whole thing. Because everybody in the company is doing one thing, one geography, one time zone that we have to manage, one language to worry about, one standards to everything was like much more sharply focused. I think this was a big learning for us as 3 of us as founders, as well as for the company itself, how focus can make world-class. I think a at that point in time, it was scary because you're taking everything and putting it in one basket, it will all fail. One you'll be back to the same. Three things you should do. At that point in time, trimming it and saying, I think it's a big decision that we made.
Actually, there was one technical decision which we took. For me, the biggest thing was so in the first phase between 2015 when we were building, we were using the they call it a threaded, the cable center where the splicing happens, what Bhaskar was saying, the splitting of the satellite beam happens. And then later on, when we decided to pivot in 2016, we started with Intel servers, wherein we were putting the software. I still remember a lot of time where we had to take the box, go install in a location where they are transmitting the signal and all that. But at that time, one point in time, we just said, let's only do it on the cloud, which is basically, as he explained, renting data centers in the cloud from public cloud companies like AWS and Google and do it only in the cloud. We took that bet and we ran the 24/7 running linear channel on that. And then we started pushing that to the customer. That one moment was a transformative moment for Amagi. That is how the cloud-based SaaS solution. So that is one that I could remember. And now the recent one. We recently did a goal saying that we will bring out more AI products from Amagi in the next 2 years. And we will make sure that our significant portion of our company's business runs through the AI software.
What are the questions for investors and customers?
So the way we present to people, and that's the way we at least have high conviction internally, is when you're an infrastructure business like what we are today, for example, where we're running the gut of the systems for our customers. That is not a reasoning system. It's really a video fabric, the pipeline which is running. Versus an application business is very different. So the way we delineate to them is say they're a mission critical infrastructure just sitting in the pipe there, and nobody's going to go wipe code that because you don't want my tens of billions of dollars running on a wipe code business, right? So those are the ways that we think there's and this is now providing us a huge opportunity because of the tectonic shifts. Now the transformation is happening on top of things. We own the infrastructure. Now we have the right to win to building everything on top of the infrastructure for our customers. I think that's the biggest value that we're able to drive. And again, this is a vantage point of one company in the way we see it. But if I'm an investor, truly it's very hard. And I'm an investor myself personally. Yeah. And when I look at a lot of the companies, it's very hard for me to feel comfortable. Is it a 1 month away problem or is it a 1 year away that somebody's going to just sweep it down?
Examples, like some companies.
See, lots of the SaaS companies which are in the application domain is a hard problem because will it be something that we can actually make them survive? Truly, and not because it was all very sensibly put businesses 18 months back or 24 months back, and that looks like that can actually be replicated in a few months of these businesses. And including us, I think the transformation for us. I feel that there's a person called Hamilton Helm who's written a book called 7 Powers of Strategy. And that's been a very timeless book to some extent over the last 20 plus years. I use that as a framework through which you apply for every business. And because that's not changing, the strategy of the businesses. So sustainability has to come through some sort of business model and not through just technology model. Because there's nothing called a technology model that's come for everybody. Right, it's become a zero-sum game for all of us, and when software becomes close to zero, then the modes are going to be the business modes and what we're trying to drive. So that's my lens of even evaluating ourselves, our businesses, as well as any other business that I see today.
So how are you planning the next 5 years considering this AI?
I think for us, it's 2 parts from our vantage point of where we are, for example. Our customers, like what I think Vidya pointed out, right? So are seeing, hey, where is my operating leverage because of AI? That's one big question for them. Where do I think I can, now I have a specific business competency, which is content creation, storytelling. Can I make my storytelling better? Can I really bring it to new audiences, for example? So these are genuinely large opportunities for them and for us to leverage the whole AI as a capability to transform those capabilities, right? And again, there are many such examples. Right? Today, we launched a product called NewsPass. It's actually for news channels. Now they want to target the Gen Z population. Local news in the US is a 40 plus sort of age group viewership audiences.
Yeah.
But over years, they've built billions of dollars of infrastructure and business to kind of cater to the community.
Yeah.
Now, but that's not the most attractive component. You want to be able to get in the next tier of population audiences. Yeah. What do? We take their existing content that's already been, they have hundreds of millions of dollars of studios and production and stories coming in. We transform that into tweets and social sharing and other stuff so that we're able to reach audiences in the devices that they actually do today. Yeah. Not in the television sets of the past, but in the phones of the future. That's one example of where we're able to carry these customers to the new journey. And all of this is done through AI infrastructure and agentic infrastructure. And we launched perhaps the only agentic AI infrastructure software today in our business example, which helps our customers. And again, this is one of a battery of new offerings that's going to come in. I'm going to look at all of that right now, but the idea is that sometimes we build those services.
And maybe after the podcast, I'll also discuss the startups.
Yes, absolutely.
Very excited. And Vidya's journey is even more interesting. I would more to talk to Vidya. I think Anjali was talking about this in her ending post that Vidya is not just one of the few who is taking maybe. But there's also someone who has led the company throughout all these years, taking the company to perform. And how you started work in a global company also, being a ex-founder, now you building a public company, leading it on the front. How has this journey been for you?
It's very fulfilling to say it's basketball. I love the job that I do. And I do this passion.
But Bhaskar has so many examples. There are so many men who have done it, right? But for you, when you were in that room where you said that there are so many more investors who are seeing at one place, right? You don't know that we have so many more investors in India that you got to see in that room that day. So for us, we don't have those many examples. You are one of the very few examples. How do you feel about it?
I think I've talked about this many times. See, the role that I play, even when the building is or whatever, gender should never come into play. When it comes into play, it becomes very difficult to do. For me, the role models are all the people who we all look at. People, the founders of Apple, founders of Microsoft, all those stories we've heard and we've seen the software that they built, we've studied computer science with utmost interest. So the interest was in what can you do, how can you build. But slowly it goes over time. I've been lucky and I've been fortunate to be associated with these guys to have built this company.
Obviously, I get two things that you might at least Srini and me, I think for me also personally, if you look at it, when we built from the trenches in the last I think in the last few years is when we really I don't think we treat people actually doesn't take anything. You never had that love. And that's where the company behaves. Company behavior is like nobody thinks it's like and lots of people who join us sometimes don't even know that they're actually spouses.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of
And the name is very confusing, right? Because my last name is Srinivas.
Yeah.
Even if I think they're spouses, they would think that Srini is my name.
Yeah.
So that's been the one. So we kind of kept that.
But you intentionally kept it like this.
People should work with you because of what you are, not because your so-and-so's husband or wife. So that's how we looked at it. Yeah, that is one, and I have struggled not to say that this was easy. With the kids especially, I've struggled a lot. Juggling between guilt, work, and doing things for it. But I've been fortunate to have a fantastic family, especially my mother-in-law who is staying with us, and she helped us all through this time. If it is not for her, we wouldn't have had both company and family going up at the same time. It would have been extremely, extremely tough. So we had a fantastic family support to
And we had taken our kids to take them to office. And we were homeschooling them.
Yeah, so middle school they were homeschooled.
Homeschool, fully.
Doing their middle school.
So both of us were teachers. So that's why actually I think I remember I don't have a photograph yet. It's about when our kids are young. I think one was they're 18 months apart. So one was a young baby and she was kind of feeding. So she had brought both to the office. So we're having a meeting in the office where everybody's sitting together. She's having a baby with her, and the other one is running around. Yes, and we're having a meeting. So kind of being also people also understand that hey, it's a work environment and that's a reality thing. So kind of we've been very and some of our meeting room boards will have written down the equations sometimes. Because we bring them to office and actually whenever there's a break we teach them.
When they saw me journey, they really did it. But I think as parents, we have done. I feel that at least we have done justice to their education with whatever we could.
I think we have covered most of the questions I have here. We can start with the rapid fire round. This is the last one. We have already recorded for 1 hour. So I'll ask the question, you can jump in and try to be as possible. So I think Bhaskar has already talked about one book. So maybe another book or Vidya can talk about
Built to Last.
Huh?
Built to Last.
Built to Last.
B-U-I-L-T. Built to Last. Yeah, so there are talks about companies which are built to last for decades and ages. I mean, hundreds of years. Take player, take Green Products. Whereas the first one of the friends and earlier colleagues of our first company introduced us to.
Right before you started the company.
Yes.
That was a 30-year framework.
That book is laid the foundation for my work.
And it helped you guys, right? Because it's really a long journey. So you never thought that it is going too long. Because you were already prepared for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
And one founder in one company that you worked in.
Any so largely I can just give you context.
Yeah.
When we were in college, so obviously Bill Gates was the entrepreneur that we were looking for. Obviously Apple was not there at that time, so we were like ahead of that time. I remember seeing a bike rack in those days point right BYT kind of thing, bike rack. I remember getting college and looking at that stuff where Windows, I think 3.0 books, not even 95, 3.0 large. And this big sheet there is actually there, and then Microsoft went public. I think that was an aha moment for me personally was, wow, this is a moment where and lots of software. I think that curiosity of wanting to build software always, even today, I think that's a common strand of wanting to build things. So that moment is what actually started thinking that we can actually write software, we actually build up and change the world. Was an option. I think till date, I think that's the passion existed to see that sort of thing.
Any company where you really love the journey they had as team, not just the founder. Like Amani is one example, right? Because Amani is very Amani is a great example for a fund like Neon also, because when we talk to our investors who are outside India, we show them that Magi has done it, right? MoEngage has done it, Capillary has done it, Unicommerce has done it, and this is just the beginning, because it took a lot of time for these guys, but now that the younger founders have these examples, have these playbooks for them, this number will multiply, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think, see, overall, I think when Elon Musk actually brought the rocket back and actually brought it to the ground again, it's a reusable rocket. Till that point, people are not convinced that it'll ever be done. But now we're seeing Blue Origin doing it. And I'm sure every founder now today in that particular sector. So always I think the first thing is to kind of go through that certainty of at some point thinking it's doable.
Yeah.
From India, we can build it for the world. I think that one person crosses the journey.
Yeah.
I think it's a flood that we actually created. And that's what I'm seeing all the new founders. I really find it very exciting because of the, again, I travel a lot and I'm seeing other parts of the globe. And the excitement, the passion, and more importantly, the brashness and the confidence that Indian entrepreneurs have today, I think is something that I only see in the valley. Beyond that, we don't see it anywhere else, and I think that's the biggest change the ability to say, let's go ahead for the fence and play it big. And fortunately, the access to capital and access to resources existed, which didn't exist. When we started in 2000, there was nobody to fund any of them. There was no venture capital. So we had to self-fund the first company fully. So versus now, and to tap that change. And I think that's going to change country to that.
And one single most counterintuitive thing you have learned about the US market. It's because you guys were selling to India market, and at one point in time you decided that you would just focus on India market, US market.
I felt that ability to take bets and try new things. There's no conservatism. There are a lot of people who say, okay, let's go bet this, let's figure it out. And it's a new company, new technology, new idea that they want to try, I will try it. That level of openness of trying new things is not something that I've seen in India easily. I'm not saying that everybody's like that, but India, businesses for them, because it's a B2B that we're running, for example, businesses are very conservative in terms of adopting new things and wanting to try new things. Maybe it's changed a lot over the last 10 years, but when we went to the US, the most refreshing thing was people are actually lapping up the ideas that we were telling them, saying, hey, when we tell them, they say, okay, well, let's try it. We'd like to look at it and then pay for it as well. Right? I think that was a big aha moment for me at least.
And the paying capacity also.
Paying capacity to really say, okay, let's take a bet. Because this looks interesting, let's go.
They still see the pricing over the value that they would be getting, right?
Yeah, see again, like it's also about how we are wired economically. If you look at it as in India, we value money more than time. It's changing in the jungle, but not
Yasuke wants him
in
dealt
the
with.
We are valuing money more than time. And the vantage point that I've seen and learned in the US is that time is more valuable than money. So I think that's a big change that I've seen.
It'll take some time.
It'll take some time, but I think the young folks understand it, get it. In fact, I'm having a lot of time conversations, and where we are in our lives, for example, I feel money more than that is time is really, really valuable. So I'm kind of trying to count every minute that I'm saying, hey, where am I spending my time? Because that's actually more valuable than the money. Right? If you have a point, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, one counterintuitive thing I had in the US with this business is that I knew, after some time when Shri's business, we understood that yes, if you show the commitment, people will buy. But then when he was asking for the local team, I thought that it's global software, it's a SaaS software, anything can be supported from here. Why can't you do it? I just didn't understand that, the nuances of mission critical software, of how media is created. That it took me some time to understand.
The human touch was needed, independent of, even if it's a internet-based software delivery, the human touch in an enterprise is something that I don't think we had. So that's for sure.
The most important was one founder had to move. That is something you guys already did, right? And the second most was having a local team.
Having a local team. I just didn't understand. It's software, it's running on the cloud, and you can access it through websites, and what's the goal? Kind of thing. The naivety I had, I realized that media requires that.
I think all businesses, not just media.
I'm sure any enterprise
business. And you both have a history of moving long before the market is ready, right? Whether it was Bluetooth in 2000, Cloud TV in 2008. What is that one book or technical paper or any post movie that fundamentally shifted, how you're thinking about the next 3 years of a market, let's say? How you always make sure that you're ahead of what helps you guys?
I follow Andrew Ng's Andrew Ng, and Andrew Ng is basically he runs a company called DeepMind API, and I should say pioneer in AI technology. So I follow the blogs that he writes, the documents he creates, Andrew Papa, they also look at it in detail, and some of those the foundational things which were done with transformers and the ability of large language models, fundamental video models that we saw, which made us feel that AI is a transformation. Andrew Ng often calls AI is electricity. AI is the new electricity. What can you do with the new electricity is what you should say. And I kept that to point, saying that it's the new electricity which is available to you now. Let's see what your applications can do.
Namaste.
I'm a culprit of. I'm always a culprit of always being ahead of what it is. Whenever I speak any idea in the company, people say Bhaskara's idea. Okay, 2 years later, we don't need to solve it right now. So that's been the challenge for me personally.
So at one point, I had to tell him, every 2 days he would draw some new PowerPoint. The presentation, right? Let's work on this. So we had to tell him, stop, we are not able to do at the pace at which you're thinking.
After so many years of building Magi and after the successful IPO we've had, what keeps you both ambitious? As well, you both are so full of energy and very excited that the other members would also leave the house. You'll have more time, more bandwidth, and obviously you're so excited about the next phase of Amagi. Right?
So today we was talking about it. Actually, we wanted to work on 3 things. It's just telling. So we, especially for India, right? Education. What can you do with education? What can you do with health? What can you do with food?
Yeah.
Can we contribute in some way towards this before the end of our lives?
Yeah.
This is what we were thinking. And what we wanted to get free education. Somehow enable people to get free education. That is one of the goals. The second one is with food. He's working on, invested in some companies and we are trying to get healthy organic food. That's India.
At scale.
At scale. Healthy organic agriculture at scale in India. So that's what we're working on. The third one, with respect to health, we want to do something. That's why he's studying and he's learning biology too. How can you marry biology and computer science and build something which can change the lives of the Indian? That's what we're looking at, and that's what is actually exciting. In fact, today morning I was telling him, hey, these guys are not going to be here. We'll get more time, let's do more things.
I don't really see this.
They know it.
Yeah.
What's that one belief you hold about media technology that most people in the industry disagree with?
Repeat the question. No, we've always been contra. If you look at it, every time we come with what's called a counterintuitive approach to this whole business.
Yeah.
I remember 2016-17 when we went to the show and we're showing cloud play out. I remember our competition from the largest broadcast technology company. I won't name them here, but I remember a lot of those people walking around. We were a small booth sitting in that in the show, for example. I said, what are you guys talking about? Cloud play out? And they were the largest leaders. They said, nobody moves to the cloud, folks. You guys are, they said, you guys are naive. You don't even know what it is all, right? So that's where the journey started. We said, no, we'll see, figure it out. Obviously, then this is like what they think the Mahatma Gandhi quote. First they laugh at you.
Yeah.
Then they start kind of fighting with you, and eventually they're scared about it and you win, right? So that's sort of the journey that we've gone through this process. So for me, I think we've always taken a counter position in the industry. Whenever something's changing, we are kind of ahead of the change. And we try to go back and actually convince our customers that the change is going. First time people didn't believe us, but now we have some sort of credibility to market. To say, okay, these people. So in fact, this time people said, okay, what is innovative? What are you bringing to the table? What is new? I think that has been a now practice at Amagi that people are expecting us to bring something innovative to change the industry.
So, just one thing, one example, if you can share.
Okay, so if you look at it, the truth of that cloud will become the way of how you operate television.
Yeah.
Nobody believed it. The whole industry was against it. There was not even a market study on that fundamentally. As I told you, competition didn't believe. Our customers didn't believe for themselves that they will ever move to the cloud. So that was a truth that I think we believe strongly, which no industry believed in those days, for example. As we progressing, if you look at the next 10 years, for example, the challenge in all of these industries is the change that AI is bringing in. I don't think people understand the magnitude of the change that's happening. And where these are exponential changes, like human minds cannot take exponential changes. I am seeing our customers in the ecosystem again at a place where they're underestimating the change in front of us. Rather than they're hearing a lot of AI. they don't know what it means for their lifestyles, businesses, and their careers and everything else. But they're not reacting to it. They think it will go away, this is yet another automation that will happen. Which is what I see in our life. This technologic change can be transforming in everything, right? Not to be fearful, but we will embrace it in the best way possible. Exactly. And I don't think industry is at a point where they are expecting this change. They think it's an incremental, yes, technology change. They're saying it's a technology change. I see it as almost a human scale change that's happening, which means the existence of these businesses in the way they exist might be challenged in itself. So there's going to be several trillions of dollars of businesses which will transform. So good or bad is not a big problem, but at least it will transform. I don't think that realization is sunk in enough for these businesses to understand the change.
A lot of young startups, like how young Nagi was.
And again, I went to some of the largest studios right now, that studios in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I was actually walking in this time, and I remember going there 5 years back and feeling in awe with that studio. Wow, what a big studio, what they've built, how these movies and Hollywood movies are getting created. The fun of looking at it was like really exciting. When I went this time, I was looking at it, wow, this is all going to become dinosauric. This content is going to be created by AI. What will happen to these studios? What happens to all these large infrastructure, people working there, whole things that's happening there? So the emotion was very different when I walked in this time to the studios to see that way. And I don't think people there were like realizing the change that's really in front of us. The tsunami is going to be massive. And that's what I think.
This is for you, Vidya. You founded your first startup when you were 23, right? What do you know now that you wish somebody had told you? Like about life, maybe?
Earlier, I used to be very impatient. To do all of these patience is very you cannot bias for action.
Yeah.
Just because you have the bias, it doesn't mean the other person is going to discriminate. So that is something that I learned over time.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Basically,
Maybe you had high bias for action, that's why you could, take those
basically what I'm trying to say is that things take time.
Yeah.
And you need to keep trying. And same time, there's humans. Like sometimes it's more.
Like believe in yourself, but also have faith in the process.
Perfect.
And if Amagi didn't exist, what would have happened to the broadcast industry?
I think we at least accelerated the trend. Is my feeling. I'm not saying that we are so arrogant to say, oh, cloud should not happen, but I'm sure we were a big accelerator for the industry.
And the last question is, what's the biggest mistake you made at Amagi that you've never talked about?
Tons of mistakes. I'm just trying to figure
Well, you can share it.
No, we have many things, right? So, I think if you look at it, choosing India was, in some sense, at that point in time, there was a lot of opportunities. So the first company was actually international.
Yeah.
So by contriving ourselves to a choice of building a technology company in India was, I think, in a decision hindsight to be said, hey, why did you take a very bullheaded decision to really do India?
Yeah.
Right at the point, that was the happening integrators. We were taking a bet which was kind of very odd bet for what we're trying to do. I think that in some sense is hindsight, if you look at it, is a mistake. But in a larger arc of what we see, for example, I don't think because of what we did was what we could do this. Because we learned the
I always
industry.
used to tell because of the kind of effort that we've done in India, when we went to international, any change, anything that happened, it's pressure test. Seriously, I'm saying, even now I used to tell, even the new product that we use Pulse, I was saying that I'll go and find my unique customer. Yeah, which is very important.
Little battery testing.
You can ask a question.
So in that sense, that I felt we could why should we have spent the 8 years doing that sort of thing? But again, it's a foundation. It happens, and then we just took it by the chin and move on.
But any advice, because you guys are also building a vertical space, any advice you could give to? Because a lot of our listeners are founders or aspiring founders. Anyone who's thinking of building in AI or still in a vertical AI or still in very early stage, any advice you could give who has just started in Bangalore and planning to sell to US market, or people who have some customers in India? And sometimes when you get traction in India, you get attached, and if it is the traction is coming inbound, you want to just be at it, right? That maybe 10 more customers, and you're just giving them demo, and the loop is not ending. You're not preparing yourself for the US market.
Right.
How to do both or leave everything and just focus on US. Once you have enough traction in US, then focus on
There's no one formula that I would try to because depending on the very situation of the company that we have here, right? The only way I think I've seen or strived for clarity is by saying, let's take a slightly long-term view of where we would imagine. If we're imagining the future in our minds, that would allow us to kind of take the right decisions in that pursuit. Sometimes I feel that we don't. So the first thing I ask my teams is, what do you think will be next April? Let's close our eyes and say, what would we term as a good success for ourselves as individuals, not as a company or individuals? Will we feel fulfilled at that point in time for something that we did for the last 12 months? That allows us to have some sort of clarity to come back saying, you know what, is this path going to take me there? Or should I do something else which will actually take me there rather than actually going with barking the same tree and then running? That's been sort of a way to kind of drive a lot more clarity in our minds. The other part is the slippery slope is every entrepreneur tenacity matters. And sometimes I feel there are a lot of impatience. So I see quite a bit of founders who say, you know what, they raise capital, they raise things, but they feel, okay, it's not working and let me drop it and go do something else. There is a balance between when would you want to pivot out of something versus how tenacious are you in that sense. It's a very, very thin balance. One side looks like stupidity and the other side looks like an epiphany of change, right? Yeah. So you need to, that is something always very hard to do. Sometimes you don't pivot and you're continuing like stuff that's also bad. Yeah. Sometimes you're not tenacious.
Give that time and then things work out.
Correct. I think that is a very tricky sort of an environment for founders, and that's where I think external
depends company to company,
and external mentorship sometimes helps to see. One of the things is entrepreneurs get into the echo chambers of themselves, and they're kind of fighting the battle every day. That's where I think boards and investors, as in external parties, can be really good advisors, not because they know the business, because they're outside the business. The emotions are not connected to the business, where you're able to bring very unemotional thought process and get things done. Where entrepreneurs can have a different point of view, albeit sometimes against what you think, though there is other counterpoints that you might also consider. Those are ways to kind of take decisions rather than and I'm not saying always the external party is right or entrepreneurs right, but at least you are able to kind of get viewpoints and get things.
Very exciting. And what are your biggest dreams?
I truly believe that we were very fortunate, right? I think where we all came from, it's like, I think every day for us has been, I think I prioritize happiness more than anything else in my present. At every point in time, being happy, any other, doesn't matter. So success will be a measure of what are we doing today? Am I happy today? And that's the only way to kind of measure life. To that extent, I think that I've been extremely fortunate to be where it is, and this is the way I kind of imagine myself if I'm not there tomorrow. I think it's been a fulfilling thing at any moment. So that's the way I see it. Nothing to look forward to, but there's a lot of exciting things to do. But that's what being fulfilling is today. I think this today is really fulfilling. I think that obviously potential always exists in terms of.
Thank you so much for you. thoroughly enjoyed this discussion.
Thank you very much.
And
Absolutely.
learned a lot of things. Saw the whole media industry from a different lens today, and got to live the whole journey with Mommy in just class coming up. Thank you so much for your
No
time.
problem. Thank you very much. Enjoy it.
What was that sound? distracts me from my duties. What was that noise?
I'll search over there.
I know I saw something. Join my search. Something's not right. Fight! Fight!
Baksana her gün rahatsız oluyor. Ne? Ah, finally. For God's sake.
Huh? I wonder what I will find. I will strike you down! Show yourself. I see what you've done. Hey, down!
What is going on? Lord Nobunaga's spirit can rest easier. His traitors have earned their final rewards.
How can I thank you for what you have done?
You helped me conquer the helplessness I felt at Lord Nobunaga's death. For that, I am grateful.
I hoped you would understand my need. But I did not expect to find a friend in you as well.
I too am pleasantly surprised.
Friendship is no little thing in our world. Though I do hope you will return someday that I might test your steel.
Goodbye, Hori Hinamasa. Yes, understood.
Thank you for cooperating. I cannot allow you to pass. Thank you. Activity!
Face me!